All right, so I'm back, and today we're gonna do another rant of the week. And today, I wanted to talk about something that didn't come up in our discussion video last week. Now, last week, I talked about boredom because there's a lot of nothing going on when it comes to the Transformers at the moment. And yes, I did fix Dinobot for you guys. I haven't gotten around to Cheetor yet. So there's just nothing to talk about Transformer-wise at the moment. We'll probably do a Game of Thrones discussion here soon, and an in-game discussion soon. But the one I wanted to talk about today just kind of like stuck in my head this morning, and it's like I've almost done the video a couple times about it, but now it's like, you know what? Let's talk about them. So I want to talk about the X-Men movies. So this is a franchise that's been going along since, 99, 2000, something like that. So it's been around longer than the DCEU and the MCU. So it's been there. I mean, the first one came out shortly after the first Blade movie. So and you definitely see the influence between Blade and Matrix in that. So it's had some pretty good movies that are up there with some of the better MCU movies, and it has some really bad movies that are down there with some of the worst DCEU movies. I mean, we're talking like Batman v Superman here. So let's just talk about them. Let's like, we're gonna talk about the old X-Men cartoon, because I mean that is probably my favorite animated show, right up there with Beast Wars. I know everyone loves Batman the Animated Series, but I gotta give it to X-Men. I just liked it better. But the movies. Let's talk about the movies. So, like, as a whole, they're okay. If I'm sitting here, like lately, I've been thinking of like a lot of like movie franchises and stuff like that, and whether or not I would recommend them to, say, for example, my girlfriend, to like an average person that has some time for movies but not a lot of time because life. And X-Men movies honestly would not be on my list of recommends. MCU, I had to watch all the MCU movies because the movies are getting better and bigger, and it's like you can't just go into those without watching the majority of the MCU movies so you know what's going on. X-Men movies, even with watching it, sometimes you don't know what's going on because they don't connect canonly. Things just don't fit. And that's a huge problem. And we had so many different directors and writers and cast choices, and it's just been like all over the place. I mean, it's a mess. I mean, not to say like the X-Men comics aren't a mess because they're all over the place, especially when they start doing time travel and stuff like that. But like the old cartoon pretty much stayed to the Saturday morning cartoon formula where something would happen, they'd resolve it, and then they move on the next day. And they'd have elements that would lead up into a bigger story. And up until like the last season, it's like everything in that show was leading to the series finale, which should have been Beyond Good and Evil 1 through 5. That I recommend to almost just about anybody. Watch the X-Men cartoon at least till then. After that point, it's just kind of like it's beating a dead horse. It's like the end game for them, for the X-Men cartoon universe, and it's like it was a very satisfying end because it all did build to that end. Since like the first episode, it's like, oh hey, this is where we're going with this. But then we get into like the movies. So let's talk about let's start off with the first movie. It was good for its time. It really was, but it is definitely a product of its time, and it's because of the way it was. Like for example, the costume elements. Everybody had the black leather outfits like, you know, in The Matrix or in Blade. And then they just kind of took that, and it's like, it goes on until now. It's still going on. And it's like, you know, if, you know, MCU or the Deadpool movies, anything to go by, it's like, us fanboys, we don't want to see them in, you know, just black leather outfits. We want to see them in their costumes. So, you know, we like their bright colors, and we like the way they're designed. We just enjoy it better. It's better that way. So, you know, it's like, you know, the joke of Wolverine saying, like, you know, oh, what should I have? You know, yellow spandex, or no, Cyclops said that. And it's just like, it's like, yeah, you know, again, it was good for its time, but it didn't age well. I really don't think it aged well. You know, the choice to put Rogue in as the young mutant, not familiar with her powers, damsel in distress character was a mistake. Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier. It's like, in terms of like D&D. Okay, so D&D is a big aspect of my life, or at least parts of it. Like in D&D, you got your characters, and let's take a look at the original X-Men cartoon. You know, you got your archers. We got Cyclops and Jubilee. Those are the archers. You got your mages with Xavier, Jean Grey, and Storm. You got kind of like a ranger with Gambit. You got your berserker with Wolverine. You got your warrior with Beast. He's also like the chemist. And then you got your tank, which was Rogue. You know, she's this beautiful Southern girl that can literally pick up a tank and throw it at people, and you know, she can take hits with the best of them. And to see her in those cartoons and in the comics like that, and then turn her into the, I don't know how to control my powers. Only power I have is to absorb abilities, and all around weak girl was like, wow, that's a drastic change. And we were all hoping, or at least I know I was hoping, that eventually we'd see her get her powers, but it still hasn't happened. And I don't think it will. That was a huge mistake, I think. Outside of the power restrictions for the story arc, Jubilee would have been a better character for it, because I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Jubilee as a character, but she's a good character. Like, I mean, look at the original X-Men cartoon. She was a good character to introduce people that have never known X-Men into the franchise and see what's going on. And then by later episodes, she's barely there because she's essentially worthless. But she does serve that purpose of, this is this universe, and you're seeing it from somebody that's just developing their powers. So they're seeing it for the first time as well as we are, so we can learn about the world through their eyes, and then once we get accustomed to it, then we don't need them anymore. And it's like, that's the importance of a character like Jubilee. And that's what they tried to do with Rogue, and it's like, that was the wrong move. Because Rogue shouldn't be that character. She should have been a stronger female role. It just was a mistake. You know, you had Storm, and that was fine, I guess. It just that was the problem. The movie was, you know, it was, like I said, it was a good movie for its time, but you kind of had limits of what you can do in those kind of movies. It wasn't this big epic. It was just X-Men doing something, saving the day from Magneto and Mystique. That becomes a huge issue for me in the future films. The second one, you know, everyone agrees it's better. I like it about as much as the first one. I don't think it was like miles better like everyone says it was. You know, having such a strong villain archive like the X-Men have. I mean, they've got a rogues gallery that rivals any of the greats. Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men. I mean, they've got this huge rogues gallery and they go with a human military dude who's more of a Wolverine villain. Mistake. I really think that was a mistake to go that route. Having, again, Wolverine the main character, Rogue again being worthless, and then having Mystique and Magneto put into this movie again, but this time as kind of like anti-heroes that our main heroes team up with. Again, mistake. I don't think the movie needed those two, aside from, the surprise twist ending when Magneto shifted everything to kill all humans, and it's like, okay, now Magneto's the bad guy again. Here we go. I think it was IGN that voted Magneto as like the #1 greatest villain, or maybe it was Wizard Magazine, and it's like, I disagree. I mean, yes, he's good because what he's fighting for is freedom of his people, and it's like that's a good, like, where it's like, are you just like the regular good guys, just at a different extreme? It's a very good complex thing, but I don't think he's the best villain in the X-Men universe, let alone one of the best villains ever. And then X-Men 3, which was a fucking train wreck. I mean, that movie was just, it was bad from the start to the end. There's not a lot in there that has a lot of merit to really go after. It's funny, rewatching it now, it's actually only slightly worse than 1 and 2 in comparison to what we've been getting comic book wise recently. It's like, yeah, it's a train wreck and it's bad, but it's not. It's still in that same vein, and it's kind of like, it's shocking, like, how that makes you think. How, like, was the first 2 that bad? And it's like, I didn't think they were that bad, but anyway. And again, what's our villains in this movie? Again, we got humans that have created the. Oh, by the way, spoilers, but I mean, we're talking about movies that are decades old now. But we're talking about. Let's see. We got humans that have created the cure to being mutants, and Magneto. Again, cool, and we got this half-assed attempt for Dark Phoenix. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. It's a half-assed attempt at Dark Phoenix. My old roommate, he loved Juggernaut in those movies. I fucking hated it. I thought that was the dumbest and the worst mistake to make Juggernaut the way they made him in that movie. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Yeah, the second one we had Lady Deathstrike. Yay. And third one, we got Multiple Man. Multiple Man. It's like, wow, this, and finally we get to see Pyro turn bad, and it's like, this is boring. This is bad. I mean, for what these movies could have brought to the table when it comes to villains, this is what we're getting. And like, kind of jumping forward, that's probably why I liked X-Men Apocalypse when it came out as much as I did, because it's like, finally, a new villain. A real villain. Alright, anyway. Going back. So after that's like what I would call like phase 1 of the X-Men movies. 1, 2, and 3, you had a good start first time. It's pretty mundane now. A good sequel, again, pretty mundane now, and a crappy third, which is still a crappy third. Then we had X-Men, the Wolverine trilogy, and we have X-Men Origins Wolverine, which, again, I enjoyed it at the time. I still kind of enjoy it now, but again, it doesn't fit with any of the other movies canon-wise. It just doesn't. There's nothing in it that now fits. And maybe they did that on purpose, maybe they did it accidentally. It's like the Bumblebee movie. It's like, oh yeah, we're trying to make a prequel, but we're not really sure how to fit this in with the rest of the series, so we're just kind of gonna do our own thing too. But it's just like the beginning sequence when you find out that Wolverine and Sabretooth are brothers. That's fine. Seeing them fight through all the wars, all the American wars, was awesome, and I wanted to see more of that. That's what I was hoping for in this movie. I didn't necessarily needed to see the Weapon X program, but instead, they did a montage of battles, and then we get Wolverine. CGI on the claws is awful. We get the Blob, which was like, we had let's see who else showed up in there. With the Blob, Agent Zero, which I believe is supposed to be what's his name? Maverick, Silver Fox, the same human villain from X-Men 2, but this time it's a different actor, which is kind of like, it's a little jarring because it's like, oh, okay, different actor. That's okay. And then you get this stupid ass story arc where Wolverine gets shot in the head with an adamantium bullet. He loses his memories, and that's why he's all. It's like, what? The Gambit was okay, but he only showed up for 5 minutes, and there is a takeaway from this movie that is good, and that is the I think it's I don't know how to say his name. Lev Schreiber, the actor that played Sabretooth, did an amazing job. I really enjoyed his character in this movie, both as Sabretooth and his acting. Like, everything about him in this movie was fucking gold, and his chemistry on set with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was really good. They seem to really play off this whole we're brothers but we're enemies kind of deal, right up there with Loki and Thor. I think they did a really good job, only they did it a lot more violently than Thor and Loki did. So it was pretty good. That part was pretty good. The Deadpool thing was, wow. and then jumping forward just for a second, the reason why this is no longer canon is because in this movie, Wolverine signs up for the Weapon X program, and then he loses his memory when he gets shot in the head, and then he just kind of wanders off, and he's the Wolverine. Whereas in Days of Future Past, that's when he gets captured and forcibly put into Weapon X, and then in X-Men Apocalypse, he's let go. So that the whole X-Men Origins Wolverine doesn't fit into this the continuing story arc, which it kind of works with like the old animated series, where he has multiple different types of memories of his past, and he can't figure out which is true. So in that context, it can kind of work. And I like to think like the whole X-Men Origins movie was, or for the most part, was implanted memories in his head. That and that's why like the graphics are worse, because it's actually just implanted memories. But that's a stretch that I don't think they really thought of. Again, I don't think they really thought a lot of things with this movie and just kind of winged it. Then we had The Wolverine, which was a better movie from X-Men Origins. The problem with that movie is that looking back on it now, it's like, what happened in that movie? Huh. Yeah, it's just, nothing in it was good enough to really be like, oh, that was awesome. It was more of just like, okay, that was a movie. It was good, It wasn't bad, but it wasn't amazing. There's that fight scene on the train that was kind of cool, but it was just, he loses his powers, and it's like, oh, well, that's stupid. I really hope they don't repeat this whole Wolverine without his powers gimmick. And then at the end, he loses his claws, so he has the bone claws instead. Which again doesn't fit canonly with the rest of the series, because in the next movie he's in, which is Days of Future Past, he does have his claws. So it's like, did Magneto fix his claws, or did nothing in there happen? Because at the end of Days of Future Past, again jumping forward here, at the end of Days of Future Past, Jean Grey's not dead, and he's back at the mansion, and he's got his adamantium claws, and the whole reason why he did the story arc in the Wolverine was because he was lost after having to kill Jean Grey at the end of the third one. So did he not even go to Japan at all? I don't know. I mean, that's one of the problems with the whole story arc, is just, you don't know. And then you get X-Men, and then you get Logan, which was a great movie, although we are rehashing events of the last movie where here he is without his powers again, and he's fighting the Reavers, and it's like, he's got so many great villains. Wolverine alone, and it's like, Sabretooth, okay. Deadpool, oh yeah, Deadpool would be a great villain for Wolverine. However, not that Deadpool. Silver Samurai, and the Silver Samurai we got, which was the TMNT Shredder. And then in this one we have the Reavers and a Wolverine clone. Okay. No Omega Red? I mean, how epic would have that been? Omega Red finally getting thawed out and been like, I want revenge on Wolverine now that he's old and decrepit. Something like that. And it would have been cool to get Sabretooth back involved, and then, having them work together again. That would have been a fun movie, but instead we got Clone Wolverine. I'm not saying that Logan was a bad movie. It was a good movie. It was very well done. It was a good movie. However, it could have been better with better villains rather than the Reavers. Telling the story of just old man Logan without any of the fun of Old Man Logan, just him driving a limo. And then we got that's like the phase 2 kind of, and then phase 3 is the X-Men First Class movies, which kind of throws all the canon out with keeping of canon. The first one was they're good. The first one was good. It was kind of like a fun movie. It was like the first X-Men movie, only more like what we were wanting to begin with. We get the introduction of some of these characters. Some of the characters die like instantly, but it was like, okay. And you get the Hellfire Club, which was never my favorite story arc, but it's okay. And you have Kevin Bacon as himself, essentially, as Sebastian Shaw, which I swear that man doesn't age, and I really think he's an actual supervillain. But it was a fun, good movie, and overall enjoyable. And it's like, to me, it was like, okay, this is good because we're going to just reboot the franchise and start over. Even though Wolverine shows up in this movie, it was just for the brief, like, hey, we're forming team, fuck off. It's like, that was a good little, nod to the original films. So it's like, okay, we're going to start a whole new franchise starting over. But then we get Days of Future Past, which again, it's a good movie. However, when you stop and think about it, is it? Because we're doing the same things over again. It's like, here we have the Sentinels as the villain, but they're not really the villain. You know, you have Trask, who's also a villain, but he's also, again, not really the villain. And then you go into the future, you see Wolverine and the original movie cast, and it's like, okay, so this is part of the same universe, but now everyone's got their powers back. Xavier's back, and it's like, so did nothing happen in the X-Men 3? Did that just not happen? I mean, I know at the end of X-Men 3, you see Magneto start to get his powers back, and you see Xavier, pop up in a new body, but then it's like it happens to be the same body, and like if I had the ability to transfer my mind in someone else's body, I'm gonna make sure that his legs work rather than. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Things like that just don't make sense. So it kind of wrecks the canon of the original movie and the reboot movie. And off screen, we find out like a whole bunch of the original characters from First Class are now dead. And then some of them have joined the army and they're about to get killed too, and they get away, and it's just like, wait, what? In First Class, also, Magneto's there with Mystique. Mystique's part of the X-Men. Magneto joins the X-Men. They form the team, which is like, okay, that's cool. And then Magneto becomes the villain at the end, and Mystique runs off with him. And then in this one, Magneto's in prison, and Mystique is like this assassin that hasn't actually killed anybody yet, so she's a pretty bad assassin. And they have to stop her, and then Magneto takes control of the Sentinels, and it's like, I think, definitely putting it in the settings of this, I think it was the 70s, and saying like, okay, so this guy named Trask is able to build not only super advanced giant robots bent on finding and hunting down mutants, but also is able to make them out of plastic so that Magneto couldn't hurt him. And I'm just like, wait, what? That seems pretty advanced for the 70s, especially when we're talking like in the same franchise, they don't have things like that in the other movies. So how do they have them now? It's too much of a leap for me. When it comes to things. I mean, when you shut your brain off and just watch a movie, it's enjoyable. That's a lot of movies. And then we get Apocalypse. A lot of people didn't like Apocalypse. I loved Apocalypse when it first came out. I mean, I thought it was great. I still enjoy it, but overall, I concede the point that it's not very well done. Again, again, you have Mystique here, who now is like, oh, I just want to be this rebel that's helping free mutants, and then she becomes a leader of the team. What? When was Mystique a leader of the X-Men? I mean, what? She's a villain. It's all because they cast, what's her name? Jennifer Lawrence, and it's like, seriously, I don't care. I don't care. Let's move on. And Magneto's in the movie again, and he wants vengeance for his family that just got killed, and he joins one of the Horsemen, and so now he's the villain, and then at the end he turns his back on those villainy ways, and he tries to become a hero, and it's like, wait, we're doing this whole Magneto story arc again? This is the 6th fucking time. Seriously, 6 times in the X-Men movie, of the 9 X-Men movies, we have Magneto and Mystique in there, and they're doing the whole am I villain, am I hero, and it's like, there's other characters we can do, there's other villains we can focus on. This is not what we need to see. I think the actor they got for Apocalypse was pretty good. A lot of people was like, oh, he looks like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers, I disagree, but to each their own. Overall, I think he did a good job. He wasn't as menacing because we had no build up. That was another problem with these X-Men movies. We have no build up to these villains, especially somebody like Apocalypse. Apocalypse is like the X-Men's level of Thanos. We should have been building to him from day one. That's the first thing we should have been doing, is build to Apocalypse. He's the main villain. And yet we rush him in his origin story, his rise and defeat all in one movie. I like the Archangel scene when he's becoming Archangel, but you also don't get that payoff because he's the third angel in the film series, and he has no relation to the angel that's in X-Men 3 because this is the 80s and he's in the 2000s, and he's just a kid in the 2000s. So it's like these are two completely different characters. He becomes Archangel. He does not. He just ceases to exist. I don't know what happened to him. And then he's dead by the end of the movie. So it's like, what happened here? And then, you got Psylocke, who's a horseman for whatever reason. Whatever. I don't know. And then, who else was... Storm was a horseman, but she became a good guy at the end. And it's like, oh my god. It's just like we're getting all these story arcs that it would have been better to build to. Had we built an X-Men team, and they keep changing the X-Men teams too. The first one we had like Banshee and Havoc, and then the second one we had nobody. Beast and Xavier, essentially. And Xavier was able to walk in that movie, but because his walking's tied to his powers. That sound you hear is the dog. And then this one, now we're getting more of the classic team. We got Cyclops and Jean Grey and Mystique because you can't have an X-Men team without Mystique. And then and then they resolve all the problems at the end, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, good job." Psylocke runs off, and we don't know what happens to her. Archangel's dead. Magneto rejoins the team, but then leaves, and then Storm joins the team. Who cares about all the people that died? But we're good. Everything's great, right? And then we get the Deadpool movies, which are good, but again, they don't fit canonly into the franchise. So who knows where they fit in? I'm not trying to just blow them off. It's just they don't fit. So it's almost like the Venom movie, where they're like, we're going to make this movie, and we're going to just try and make it so that if Disney wants to just make this part of their universe, they can later. Things like the Helicarrier in the first Deadpool movie, and the different Juggernaut, the different Colossus. Everything's different in these movies. But I don't know. And now we have Dark Phoenix to look forward to. And it's like, are you going to try the Phoenix Saga again without a build-up? Oh my god. It's like, I just want to shake their heads and be like, what are you doing? You had this tease that Sinister is going to be the next villain, but no, it's going to be the Dark Phoenix. Maybe Sinister will show up, but they haven't showed anything like that. It doesn't make sense. I'm not looking forward to the Dark Phoenix at all. I'll probably wait till it comes out on video and watch it. I'm over it. I know Disney bought Fox. They're just putting out this movie, and I think the New Mutants, just because they've already been made. And it's like, oh, they're too far down the road, we'll just go ahead and release them. I'm eagerly waiting for Disney to reboot the franchise because it needs a reboot. It needs to be completely washed clean. I don't know what they're going to do with Deadpool. I would like them to keep Deadpool, but if it's like keeping Deadpool means we have to keep the X-Men franchise, I'll be like, well then fuck it, just kill it all. flush it down the drain, because I don't care. I do not want this franchise to continue. It's done. It's dead. It's beyond salvage. Like I said, the canon doesn't fit. I know we're gonna get X-Men versus Magneto again, but it's like, hopefully we can do that and get past it and move on to a new threat. Sauron, Sinister, Apocalypse. Apocalypse could be done a lot better. You could do movies of the Horsemen building to an Apocalypse movie. You could do... Gambit needs to be in there. Sentinels. We need Sentinels. I know we did the Sentinels, but it's like, did we really do the Sentinels? Because 6 Sentinels in the 70s, not what I was thinking. When I was thinking, Sentinels. And the Days of Future Past Sentinels, they're too advanced. So it's like, it's not a good compromise. It's like, I want the Sentinels like they had in the old cartoons, led by Master Mold, and I want the Mutant Registration Act to come out. I want the Legacy virus. I want story arcs like that. Let's get Strife involved. Let's get some of that rich X-Men history rather than Mystique and Magneto every movie. There's so much stuff we can do, and it's like, I have faith that Disney can pull it off, because they pulled everything else off, and because of the events of Endgame, we're needing a new influx into the world's heroes. And I have a theory on how we could do that perfectly. But I have no idea, how they're going to do it. But, okay, so this next part is going to be spoiler for Endgame. So you're warned. If you haven't seen Endgame, pause the video or go watch it, or I don't know where you've been. But anyway, in Endgame, you have Professor Hulk. He snaps his fingers to bring everybody back. Now, if he brings everybody back, because so far in the MCU, as far as we know, there's no mutants. They haven't been mentioned. They're trying to build the Inhumans up to be mutants, essentially, but they haven't been there. But you have Hulk do the snap, and if Hulk does the snap, and it may be like he's wishing for everybody to come back, but in his back of his mind, he's thinking he wants more people like him, people that are physically and mentally, just different. And that's where the mutants are created, is by him thinking he wanted more things like him in the world. That would be a perfect way to be like, okay, now we have mutants. So it's like, part of the population that comes back are now mutants. Problem solved. Now we have mutants, and then we can just start introducing them as we go, and it would be a fun, oh, I have powers, and we can just kind of build it up from there. Maybe we can say that there were some mutants, but there wasn't very many, so they would stay in hiding, like somebody like Xavier, for example, and so that when there's more mutants, he's able to pull them all together and start forming the X-Men. But it's like, I've been wanting a Moon Knight movie, but now that they got the X-Men movies that they can pull the characters from, I doubt we'll get all these B-list heroes, because now they're going to be focusing on the A-list heroes that they now have the rights to, like the X-Men. And I think we can make this really, really, they can make it really well. Not that I could speak very well at the moment, but anyway. I'm ready. I'm ready to just cut the slate clean and start over the X-Men movies. I'm not invested in the story anymore. I want it to end. I want it to be over. It needs to go away. It doesn't make sense canonly. You can't sit there and just watch the movies from start to finish and be like, oh yeah, that was a good story. It's going to be like, wait, what about this? And what about this? And what happened with this? How is this person here but not here, and then is here, and then dead here but alive here, in a same body but with the same bad legs? Huh? Trying to wake the dog up. He's snoring pretty good. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, he's glaring at me for waking him up. So anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on the X-Men movies? Are you like, sad to see it end, or are you like me, where it's like, please kill it? It's like, this is gonna sound morbid, but it's like if you see a deer on the side of the road that's been hit by a car. It's really badly hurt. It's clearly dying. You just want it to just stop. Just let it die. It's not like the DCE universe where it's not going to die. It's just going to keep going, and you're going to sit there and be like, wait, what? But that's a different story for a different day. So yeah. Anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on the X-Men movies?